Cory and I actually got to know each other in a house. I was the Revolution class of '94. That's Maria. She's almost recovered fully from it. We spoke a lot through 2015, almost daily, about debate rules, debate issues, Outsiders United for Change, that kind of stuff. But like Jim said, we came together after the campaign and decided to throw out a shingle and see if we could make this work. My dad still wants to know when I'm going to get a real job where we actually make something. But right now we're trying to make governments all over the world and help be a voice for the voiceless, really. Mark Twain was famously said, there are three kinds of lies: lies, damn lies, and statistics. So I'd like to start with statistics. Having just heard Ed, he's great, love him. One of the things that we've witnessed recently, Republicans never won among seniors until 2010. So those of you that did campaigns prior to 2010, you were quite familiar with the Medicare scare from the AARP, because it was a great way for them to turn out votes against us. But in 2010, we started winning. Romney won among seniors. Donald Trump won among seniors. Why? Because who is a senior has changed. The new dealers have died. My grandparents. And they've been replaced with my parents. And my parents, are just like many folks around the country, have a lower standard of living, economically less comfortable than my grandparents. And that's why one of the things you see the economy being such a big issue is because the new senior, the senior of today, frets a lot. They are the folks that believed that you would go to work for one company for 30 years and retire with a pension. And they don't see that anymore. So they are very frightened by what they see in the economy, which is one of the reasons they have started voting for us. So how do we know this? Look at voter registration around the country. Let's take Florida. Today versus 4 years ago in Florida, there are 300,000 fewer registered Democrat voters. They died and were replaced by new seniors who are likely to be more Republican than their predecessors. The population of Florida has not gone down, Lord knows. Even go into a more micro, is anybody from Ohio here? I know Ryan. Yeah. In Cleveland, Ohio, which is, in Cleveland and Ohio, Democrats roll up enough votes to survive losses in the other 87 counties. In Cleveland, Ohio, today versus 4 years ago, there are 100,000 fewer registered Democrat voters today than there were 4 years ago. And though the population has gotten a little smaller, but the demographic has changed dramatically. Those new dealer, white retired couples who used to live in Cleveland and refused to move out, they've passed. And they've been replaced by their seniors. It's a dramatic shift all around the country. Ohio, for instance, for the first time, I started working in Ohio politics in the Reagan campaign in '84. And for the first time in my life, Ohio is a red state by registration. First time. Now, if you're Sherrod Brown, that ought to keep you up at night. I hope it does. But those are the kinds of shifts we're seeing because of the realignment of seniors with our messaging. There are tons of other things that are going on as well that scare them. There's a great story in Axios today about the proliferation of flavored news and the dramatic growth in right-wing websites. Well, yeah, because Americans have now figured out that you can get your news in a variety of flavors. And if you want, you can find your own flavor. There are not just, three guys. When I first came to the Hill in 1987, America got their news at 6:30 from one of three men who sat behind a desk and told us the exact same thing on all three networks, but that was the news. And then the next blast of news you got was when the newspapers were delivered in the morning. We used to have, this is before the internet, but we had the AP wire on our terminals, and they were terminals in the house at that point. And when you saw a story break on the wire, you could actually crawl inside the story by putting out a statement. You know, if something happened in your district, you know, had a traffic accident or whatever, you could put a release that, let's all pray for the family or whatever, and you could actually get in the story the next day in the newspaper by knowing what it was and putting out a press release. Well, today, by the time you see it on the AP wire, it's already a story, right? It's done. The news cycle has moved so fast. In fact, if you look at today, the convergence, which was greatly talked about, and it's finally here, the three network anchors have a combined 900,000 Twitter followers. Donald Trump, in his personal account, has 25 million. So, what is the fastest way to get out news for these folks? I mean, people are getting their news. I haven't watched the evening news in a long time, primarily because I'm never home at that time. But I mean, when I was a kid, we turned on the TV for the evening news. That's all gone. People are getting their news from Facebook, and there's so much fake news. They don't care. Right? They want news from someone that they think thinks like them. And unfortunately for reporters, their Twitter feeds it's become the death of journalism in my view. It's the rise of opinionism and the death of journalism, because they all can post now things that their editors would never let them say on air or ever get in print. I mean, there's a CNN reporter who's a friend of mine, who's from Ohio, a great guy, but he called Trump a liar, which you could never do that when I came up through the system. It was just something you could not do. But he didn't have an editor to go through. He didn't have to worry about getting it leaked and delay. I don't know what's happening here.
You criticize CNN, they shut your mouth. Jeff Zucker knows how to control it.
But there was a great story yesterday. A friend of mine who works for the failing New York Times. He posted a story which he picked up from the Tennessean, which was a poll that the Tennessean had picked up, and the headline was "End of Honeymoon for Trump," and this was what they based this on. That in Tennessee, Trump got 61% of the vote, but his new approval rating in this poll was only 52%. So obviously the honeymoon's over, and it's really bad news. However, had they just managed to read a couple more lines in that poll, they would have noticed that 39% of the voters didn't vote for Trump, yet his disapproval was only 31%. So maybe the honeymoon's back on again. I don't know. But I mean, my friend at the New York Times, Mr. Gabriel, he's not an evil man. He didn't do this intentionally. But in his mind, he can't wrap his mind around the fact that anyone would like Trump. So when we see something that he thinks is evidence of them not liking Trump, he felt free to retweet it. But it was, an unintentional expression of bias, subtle bias, if you will. So that we're seeing, I don't know, I've stopped following all of my friends at NBC. I just can't take it anymore. You shouldn't yell at your phone at 11 o'clock at night, so I stopped doing it. Trying to be gentle here. If we look at the election results, we see that Donald Trump, which Ed just talked about, won whites by 21 points. Mitt Romney won whites by 20 points. Why did Donald Trump get 306 electoral votes and Mitt Romney lose? Well, obviously, more of them must have turned out. But we all know we could all, if we were asked to make a list, we could all make a list of dozens, if not hundreds, of people who were friends of ours who said they were not going to vote for Trump, who were traditional Republican voters. They go to the Lincoln dinner and all this stuff. I just can't vote for Trump. So that means there are a lot of new people out there who voted for Trump, and we need to get to know them. And they live in places that we, probably don't go to often enough. They don't come to our Lincoln days. They live in places like Warren, Ohio, and Pike County, Ohio. I mean, Pike County, Ohio, George Voinovich is one of the most popular governors we've ever had. The only county in Ohio he never won was Pike County. Donald Trump won Pike County. Warren hasn't got Republicans since, I think, Eisenhower, something like that, I don't know. But I mean, and there's, the only difference between Warren County, Ohio, and the next county over in Pennsylvania is what team they root for on Sunday, right? I mean, they're the exact same people, they just have different jerseys. And so that's happened in Michigan and Wisconsin. I mean, what's the difference? There is none. So as a party, we've got to get to know these new people, understand what makes them tick, and harness their energy, because that's the expanding of the base that we so desperately need in order to survive. I mean, we've all read about the end of the Republican Party thanks to the Hispanic voter. I mean, that just was complete crap. The switch in seniors more than made up any difference in Hispanic voters. Do we have to do a better job with Hispanic voters? God, yes. We went from 6 to 8% among African American voters, and we think we did a great job. I mean, that's better. But we might see for the first time that number go above 10 next cycle, which is amazing. But there's a lot of work to be done. Anyway, I'll shut up and let you. It's usually, that's my entire business model as well.
Well, let me thank everybody for being here. As Barry said, I started on the Hill a long time ago with a congressman from Ohio that went to jail. But before that, the last Republican, from Massachusetts, I actually worked for way back in the late 90s. It tells you how long we've been banging around doing this stuff. And I also want to make sure that, because I don't want to get my ass suit off, all these comments of mine don't represent that of the president or anyone from the administration, just to be clear. So, look, it has been an amazing 2 years, having a front row seat of history. But look, I see the front row, and Ron John's going to be very happy. You guys all took up the front row seat, so Ron John's going to be very happy. Very astute. Look, Ron John is the microcosm of Donald Trump. Right? You have a successful businessman, Senator Ron Johnson, okay? Successful business executive who understands how to create jobs, who took his own personal wealth to run for office, and was successful. And then ran again in what was supposed to be a very, very bad year for the Republicans, looking at the electoral map in the U.S. Senate and how it was going to be decimated. And Ron John went out and talked about what he wanted to do, which was create jobs and win. And when you look at the Trump campaign, and all my friends who used to sit right here told me when I took this job I'd never work in politics again. Hopefully they're right. They don't want to work in politics, they want to make money. No. Two different things. But the unique part is, when we started the Trump campaign, one of the very first events that I had the privilege of traveling with Mr. Trump to was CPAC in 2015. And at that time, Scott Walker was in the race, as were, I think, what we called 15 other geniuses. And Donald Trump came to CPAC. It was the first time I'd really traveled with him. And there was this crowd that followed Trump everywhere he walked. It was unlike anything I'd ever seen. And I wasn't sure if people were following Donald Trump because he was the celebrity Donald Trump that they'd seen on television, or that they thought he was actually going to run for president, or maybe were the only ones who thought that at the time. But it was amazing, because you could draw this massive crowd. And I remember walking into the room, and we were having a reception just before he went up to speak. It was the same exact room that Scott Walker had been in just literally minutes before. And as we walked down to the room, the hallway was completely full, both sides, 8 people deep. I said, what are all these people doing here? Man, Walker must be a great speaker. This is amazing. And Scott leaves, and Trump walks in, and they pack the room so much that the fire marshal comes in and says, no more people. First indication, February 2015, people want to hear what Donald Trump has to say. I don't know if it's real. I don't know if they want to hear him because he's a non-politician or because he's going to say something that nobody else is willing to say or do, but it's a first indication that people are looking for something different. And as we traveled around the country, and I spent 18 months with candidate Trump from January of 2015 to June of 2016, 18 hours a day, 7 days a week. It didn't matter where we went. The crowds were massive. We talked about this all the time. Lowell, Massachusetts is the town I grew up in. It's a blue-collar town up in Massachusetts. And it was January of 2016. We're in the middle of a blizzard. And I said, hey, let's go do a rally. We did a rally up in Lowell, Massachusetts. People literally in this blue-collar town spent 8 hours waiting to get into the building, because at that point we had Secret Service protection, so they had to get scanned through the magnetometers. We filled the stadium that had 15,000 people in it. And you're looking around, and these aren't the Republicans who are coming to the Lincoln Day dinners. These are people who just wanted fundamental change, and they're tired of Republicans and Democrats alike going to Washington, telling them one thing and doing something different. And they're tired of $20 trillion in debt. They're tired of special interests having privileges that nobody else has. And I can tell you that we went to this small town in New Hampshire called Laconia. It's up on the lake where Mitt Romney's home was. We brought the president in. We took a small plane in because it was a small airport. We took off from New York and we landed up at the Laconia airport. And when I landed, my phone had like 15 voicemails. It was like a 30-minute plane ride. All from the same number. Man, what's going on? We're a local PD, local police officers. And they said, Mr. Lewandowski, we've got a problem. I'm the chief in the town. We've got a problem. Nobody showed up, right? Trying to give us a courtesy. They said, we need to come get you. This is prior to Secret Service protection. We need to come get you because we had to close the road because there's so many people here. We were hoping to get 150 people in this little hall. When we showed up with Donald Trump in Laconia, New Hampshire, there were 3,000 people there. They were literally standing on the roof of the building. And we pulled up in 2 SUVs with a police escort, and the people came over and literally were shaking the cars. They wanted to see Trump. And then he got up, and it was 200 degrees in this room. It was amazingly hot. There's footage that they always use with it, some B-roll. It was amazingly hot. Nobody left, and we left. I've never seen anything like it. People were literally running after the car. And then we had to go, we went to the airport, and we actually had to do a hit with Fox. He was doing O'Reilly, and everybody knew we were going to the airport. So the whole 3,000 people started to show up at the airport. And they just want to be around Trump. And they just want to talk. And they want to understand his mindset. They want to understand why he would say things that he would say. And I think that's where Washington, D.C. is. Why does Donald Trump say things? Because he brings a different mindset as the new CEO of our country. He brings a mindset which is a business executive, which is maybe what we need for a change. You know what that mindset is? Why are we buying 2 Air Force Ones as opposed to just 1 at a time? I know this is a crazy notion, but who goes out and buys 2 brand new cars on the first day? You can only drive 1. Maybe you drive 1 for 2 years, and then you turn it in, and then you drive another new one for 2 years. And this has been publicly talked about. The president brought in the CEO of Boeing Corporation and said, look, I think the price is too high. I'm not going to pay $4.2 billion for 2 airplanes. And the program manager was there, and the president said, why are we buying 2 planes? Well, sir, that's what the specs are for. Well, why don't we just buy 1? Well, that's what we need. Well, I can only be on 1 plane at a time, so it's only Air Force One if I'm on it. Right? It's the only time they ever call it Air Force One. Well, maybe we just buy 1. And the program manager looked at the president and said, no one's ever mentioned this to me before, sir. It's not bad. That's not pejorative against this program manager. That's the mindset that our government officials and unfortunately many of our bureaucrats have had. Is this the way we've always done it? And I am here to tell you, whatever has been done before, whatever sacred cow that you have been privy to, no longer exists. It is fundamental and wholesale change in Washington, D.C., emanating from the Oval Office. Because the president believes, and I agree with him, part of his duty and obligation to the American people is to watch their tax dollars. Donald Trump would have had a very, very good life if he was not elected president of the United States. He had all the money he would have ever used, and his children would be perfectly fine. Him going and negotiating, personally negotiating with the CEO of Boeing to save $200 million to him is success. And to the American taxpayer, it's success. Let me just put this in perspective, as you guys know better than I do, because I'm public school educated. We have a $4 trillion budget, right? The Boeing project's a $4 billion budget, okay? Do the numbers, it's 1/100th of 1% of the total budget. The president is engaged in a project of that size, 1/100th of 1%, to shave $200 million off, because that is the highest, best use of his time at that very moment, and that's what he told the taxpayers he would do, is go and run Washington to the best of his ability like a business. I think that's what you will see as they put together the president's budget in consideration. But I also think that you have to remember the people in that building over at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. And if we look at the top 5 or 8 staffers, whether it's Ryan, Sir Jared, or Kellyanne, or Steve, or Katie, Hope, Dan, the president, have exactly 32 days of government experience. None of them have ever had a .gov email address before they stepped into the open. Now people say, oh, that's terrible. I think that's exactly what the American people wanted. And it's so important to understand that they bring a completely different mindset to Washington. And I think a lot of companies are nervous about being part of the Twitter brigade and being hammered by the president. But if the president can do anything, he's going to truly change the way Washington works. And I think it's a very hard thing. This is a massive project, the one that the president is very, very willing to undertake. Because if he has to leave the White House in 4 years or 8 years or somewhere in between there, he wants to leave the country in a better spot than we got. And $20 trillion in debt is not where we can go. We can't survive. The budget is going to be a significant priority of the president, as are, and I know this is amazing to a lot of people, as are the promises that he made on the campaign trail. A lot of people say, that's all just rhetoric. He's going to become more presidential, okay? He sneezes as presidential. He's the president, okay? It doesn't matter anymore. He is the president. Whatever he does is now presidential, okay? It's not presidential to tweet. It's his Twitter account, and he says president, so it is presidential now, officially. Whatever your thought of what presidential is irrelevant anymore. And what he is going to do, what his team is doing, is maintaining and executing the campaign promises that they made, because in states like Wisconsin and Pennsylvania and Ohio and Iowa, and places where they said no Republican is going to win, Hillary Clinton is going to have 370 electoral votes. CNN told me every day I was on there, every day. It's going to be the biggest devastating loss since Barry Goldwater. Donald Trump cannot win, statistically impossible. The morning of the election, the New York Times put this whole thing on their website. 98.5% certain Hillary Clinton was going to be the president that evening. 98.5, that's pretty certain, right? Then you watched it move. Well, maybe a little less certain, a little less certain, a little less certain. All of a sudden, they woke up and said, holy shit, we just lost. It was amazing. The New York Times actually just lost the election. It's incredible to think of what this president has been able to do by bypassing the mainstream media and going directly to the people. His ability to talk to people in massive settings, whether it's through social media, where he's got 25 million followers, or by holding a press conference. Who watched the press conference? Hold on. Who didn't watch a press conference? 3 people? I find that hard to believe. Everybody watched it. This is amazing, right? It's amazing how he has captured the American people's attention. People are starving for someone to tell them what is really going on. And Donald Trump, President Trump, my friend, whether you like it or not, is going to tell you what he thinks. And I know it gives his staff heartburn. And I know it gives the leadership in Congress heartburn sometimes when he says things and does things. I took a call from the president of Taiwan, and I think like the State Department actually imploded on the 7th floor. It was amazing. Foggy bottom, just, oh my God, what just happened? It's amazing. It's different. It's different because he is not encumbered by 30 years of rules and regulations that everybody's told him he's had to follow. He's done things differently, and I think, and you guys know this, he will have a lot of legislative success. every president will also have legislative failures. And the question is how you communicate that back in your respective districts and with the people that you need to work with. And I think what you see right now is there's a lot of people on the left who woke up and didn't understand what was actually coming. A lot of people on the right, too, candidly. But you can agree or disagree. Here's where we are. We're here today. And if the president is going to be successful, and I hope he is, he needs the help of the people in this room, and he needs the help of the elected officials in Washington. But I don't think you're going to see the president compromise his values or his opinions, and I don't think you're going to see the president stop using the bully pulpit when he believes that it is in the best interest of the American people to do so. So, look, I've had an amazing privilege, which I never thought I would have, which I never thought I was going to run a presidential campaign. I didn't really want to, but I was very, very fortunate and blessed. And I'm sure you all have questions about the president. Yes, the hair is real. We know that. But I'll be happy to answer any questions because I think, you know, between Barry and I, we spent a lot of time with the president, know his team very, very, very well. It's different. And I've worked on the Hill, I've worked on the House side, I've worked on the Senate side. I don't know how to say it other than it is different. This is a president who is going to have Vice President Pence intimately involved in the work on Capitol Hill. Mike is a true professional. Mike, I love Vice President Pence. I had the privilege of chairing the Vice Presidential Selection Committee as we were vetting people. And Mike, he's such a good American. We vetted a bunch of people, and I had these dossiers that were like, 600 pages thick on some of these guys, And I got the one, and they said, here's Vice President Pence's dossier, sir. There's one page, and what the heck? Where's the rest? I said, Mike received a traffic ticket when he was 17, and he apologized 6 times for it. And I said, I love this guy. He's great. The whole thing. And I'm literally happy about that. But he's just a great guy. He is a fantastic partner for the president. He is someone who I think has very, very deep and well-respected relationships on Capitol Hill. And I think you're going to see a vice president in this administration taking the lead and helping move the president's agenda on Capitol Hill very, very much. Because that's what he does. That's what he likes to do. And he's a fantastic asset to the team. So.